Okay, so we are live. Hi, guys, it's Jen the tutor, and I am here with two special guests, and I'm going to let them both introduce themselves. Amy, Emily, why don't you go first?
Hi, my name is Emily Stilla, and I also go by Amy. I'm a senior at Hilton High School, and I'm also an ambassador for the College Admissions Support Group run by Miss Jen.
Thank you, Amy. And Ryan, welcome. We've never actually met in person. We need to do
That's true.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just realized that. So she's moved here. I think we've talked about Wegmans a lot, but we've not actually met in person. But Ryan, you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody where you're, well, not broadcasting from, but like who you're representing today?
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Chernick. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Regional Enrollment Manager for the University of Toledo, which is based in Toledo, Ohio, up in Northwest Ohio. But I live in Southern Maryland, right in the border of DC and Bethesda. And I recruit all of our students from the Mid-Atlantic down to the Gulf Coast.
And I actually was at Wegmans today, and I have my University of Toledo cup here. So I love this cup. It became the talk of the group last year when I got this cup. But anyway, so today we're kind of talking about one of the things that I hear all the time from parents and caretakers, guardians, is that they are not looking out of state for colleges. But before we kind of get into that, can you tell us a little bit about University of Toledo? And then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question after that.
Yeah, totally. So the University of Toledo is what you'd call a mid-major university up, like I said, in Northern Ohio. So we have about 15 to 17,000 undergraduate students, about 4,000 more in their master's, doctorate, professional programs. We are a comprehensive university, so over 120 different majors and programs to choose from. So anything that most students are looking for, you can find it to study here at the university, though we do specialize and are pretty well known for engineering and the medical sciences. So a lot of great strengths in both those programs. But if you'd like to come study, education or business or communication, psychology, whatever it might be, it's one of the great gifts about having so many majors to choose from. It's a diverse campus as well. So students do not just come from Northwest Ohio. They really do come from all over to study and learn and grow in the great city of Toledo, which is the fourth largest city in Ohio. Just because people have never heard of it doesn't mean it's a little town. There's about 250,000 people in Toledo. So it is a nice little metropolitan area. And the beautiful campus is settled right into the suburban part of the city.
Yeah, and I actually learned about Toledo through a student. And she had cosmetic chemistry. Is it chemistry?
Cosmetic science and formulation. Yeah.
Yeah, she wanted to be, a makeup like she wanted to look into makeup and like the chemistry behind makeup. And so she found y'all's program, and somebody else from her program or from her family had gone there and loved it. And now she's there and she loves it. So really appreciate that. Now, one thing I always ask people is, what is something that you learned about University of Toledo that you don't feel like can be captured by any brochure or any website or even in your presentations? Because I know you give a lot of presentations to high schools.
Yeah, and this is going to sound, I think, a little cliched because you could say this for a lot of schools, but it's really the feeling on campus. Okay. I've had a great pleasure of attending another university for my undergraduate. I've worked at other institutions as well. I've visited my fair share campuses, just like I'm sure you have as well in our profession. And so really it's when you walk around campus, when you get to know the people, the faculty, it's that thing that kind of pulls people to the university. And that is that it's really a supportive school, right? There's a big commitment to making sure that education stays accessible. So it's a high quality education, but it has to be something that people can actually do and attain. So it is the fact that when you get in there, you get in the classrooms, you get in the support services, when you really start to feel what it's like to be a U Toledo Rocket, it's very comforting, I feel like, especially for me who works with mostly out-of-state students who have a lot of anxiety about going away from home. I can tell them all day long that it's gonna feel like a good place. You're gonna meet people, you're gonna make friends, but until you get there, it's just totally different. And I hope that when I tell them that, they really believe me. Because like I said, it's a cliche, but that doesn't take away from how true I think it is.
Amy, do you have any reservations? I know you're in your senior year. Have you thought about going out of state? Did you have any reservations about going out of state or things like that? Or even your friends who are talking about going out of state?
I think for me, I didn't have any reservations going out of state because I knew that's probably what I wanted to do. But
I wanted to get out of here as soon as possible.
But I think the reservations were from my parents and just like cost, and then
Right.
from like students not feeling like, because I feel like there's a sense of like when you go to a school in like the country you live, I mean the state you live in, it's like, oh, I know those type of people, I know like I could fit in there, but like going to an out of state school, it's like, I don't
Mm,
know who these people are. So
yeah. And especially like with COVID, a lot of people are so close to home. So like I either find that students want to stay close to home and like stay close, or
Mhm.
they want to like go as far away as possible. So is that what you're seeing as well too? Like do you notice that Virginia students in particular are looking into University of Toledo more, or how do you kind of bridge the gap and make them feel warm and welcome as they start exploring out of state options?
Yeah, so the first is I'm just so friendly and handsome. I think that really helps me. Helps put people at
You
ease. No,
are very friendly, Ryan, though. You are.
so that.
And handsome, by the way. I
Thank you.
forgot.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah. Wait a minute.
oops.
Yeah, so it's an excellent question, and I think it's something again that like in our profession of admissions, it's making these far away, sometimes exotic sounding places, exotic as Northwest Ohio can sound to people, but making them realize like this is a real place and it's full of people, and it is something that while it's going to take you away from home and it's going to give you sort of that fresh perspective and that new area to live in, it is also going to give you the opportunity to kind of settle into something familiar, because you're going to have people of your age, you're going to have people similar backgrounds, similar majors, whatever it might be, that you can still relate to and connect with. So it's reminding them as while you are going away for school, and Toledo from Northern Virginia is a good 7-8 hours, depending on where you are, and the further south you go, the further away it gets.
Yeah.
While you still are going so many hours away from home, you will find that comfort eventually. It's that exciting jolt at the beginning, especially where it's packing up the car, doing the road trip, unloading your stuff
Right.
in your residence hall. But hopefully then after those first couple of weeks, as you get into your coursework, you realize you get the excitement of a new place, but you still get, again, that community that's going to be there for you, and people who have the similar interests and the similar drives. And as far as getting students in Virginia, and then I'll lump in DC and Maryland as well, because I work with
Virginia people are like, no.
I'll keep
No.
it separate. We'll keep it separate.
We have nothing but love for DC and Maryland, except for their drivers. Except for their drivers. And they would say the same about us, but go ahead.
So when we're when we're working with those students, I say when I'm working with those students, because I'm the person. So anyone coming from Virginia, I'm their guy. They can email and text, call me about admissions questions, but I also help them with financial aid, with housing, with getting signed up for orientation. Last summer, I fielded all those calls about, hey, where should we stay if we're staying in town for a few days? Where should we eat? What should we do? Can you get me into Cedar Point for free? I cannot, unfortunately, but I will certainly try and get you discounts. All those things, I help kind of make University of Toledo feel like a real place, and you work with a real person. And that's one of the reasons I like my job so much, is because
Right.
there's already a lot of anxiety around the college search, as both of you know from both sides of it. There's a lot of anxiety students feel, especially today with COVID, maybe hopefully waning. I'd like to believe. Maybe,
I don't like to speak to COVID because COVID always, has a way of if you don't respect it enough, it comes back and
that's a very good
let's
point.
whatever you want to do, COVID, just let us know.
Please do. Well, with that and everything else kind of happening, I think that anxiety has kind of been ramped up about where do I go? What do I do? How am I going to pay for it? And so I, again, try and make that process a little easier and a little more friendly and just try and
Yeah.
answer those questions as best I can. Because at the end of the day, when I help students explore Toledo, I've had plenty look at us. Some have come out for a visit and said, I liked it. It's great, but it's not the school for me. And that's, in my opinion, that's fine. I want students to pick the school that they're going to really have that connection with and they're going to be excited about. So it's just helping them through that exploration process. Trust me, I love when they enroll and become rockets. That's super fun. But at the end of the day, it's about making sure that they have the support they need from the admissions office. And I would say that's true for most any counselor I've ever interacted with. And that's also what makes it fun is I know my colleagues at other institutions hopefully have that same perspective.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like in the admissions world, it's not necessarily, I mean, maybe there are some colleges out there that are competing for students and whatever, but it really comes down to whether you feel at home and if it's a good fit, because nobody wants somebody to enroll in a college and then leave 2 years later because it wasn't the right fit, or a year later. So I think, but when you're exploring out of state, because in Virginia, we have 38, 39, maybe more institutions. And I think one of the things is, I always say we're not New Jersey. So, which is my go-to phrase, right? Because being not New Jersey means that we do have a lot of options, but I do think sometimes we kind of get tunnel vision on the options that we have, and we don't necessarily explore outside. One thing I was going to ask you about before we kind of get into some of the programming is, because you guys have so many majors, like when you go to the website, y'all, like there is so many drop downs. Like you just hit it. I'm trying to find it again. And there's a drop down for each major. And in each, you have arts, you have education, humanities, social science, health and helping professions. And in each one of these professional business and engineering, science, mathematics, and engineering technology. So you have engineering. Wait, what's the difference between engineering and engineering technology?
It's so funny you asked that, because I had a meeting this morning with one of the engineering advisors who went over it again for all of us. Engineering technology, very broadly speaking, is going to put you more like in the field, whereas engineering sometimes is maybe a little more theoretical, maybe more design based, maybe more about like the planning and the implementation. Whereas the further you get to like being like a construction technology would be an engineering program, and it's basically making you a site manager for a construction site. That's, you're on the ground, you're there, you're working. Whereas if you are a civil engineer, you might be more back in an office or a lab somewhere working, testing, modeling, and then you would take it and implement it. So technology versus engineering, different career paths, and slightly different even program paths, because engineering is a little longer, but that's very broadly the difference.
Okay. And then you have undecided for people who are undecided, right? And Emily, kind of where you want to fall, right? Because you wanted to do pre-med, and I know, Ryan, you have a lot to say about pre-med as well. But how do you, like, when you're looking at colleges and their programming, like, how do you determine what is a good fit for you, Amy?
I think I see what the program has to offer. So like if they have internships or research programs and stuff like that, because that's what I'm interested in. Also seeing like how many like graduates graduate from like the pre-med and then go into med school, for me, is what helped me. Like, it's a good fit for me.
And Ryan, I know like one of the things that you guys kind of really hallmark yourself on is practical experience and like that portfolio that at the end. Can you tell everybody kind of a little bit about that before we go into cost and things like that?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, a big educational emphasis for U Toledo is that experiential learning piece. And like you had just mentioned, there's a lot of majors. When you go on the website, it's drop down after drop down at box after box. Majors you've never heard of, the ones you have heard of. So the thing that kind of ties them all together, the thread that kind of connects them all to U Toledo, is that we're hoping to get students as much experience in the real world as we can while we're still doing our undergraduate education, because no one is here to argue that, we need to keep students out of the classroom 100%. They should just be working their whole college career. There is, of course, that room for the classroom work, the books, the lectures and everything, but we want to make sure you leave with a diploma and a resume. So that way you have some skills that you can show. And it also helps students figure out, is this the right program for me? Jen, I think you'll get this 100%. If you're an education major and you only start student teaching your senior year, you might find out you don't love kids as much as you thought you did.
I mean, I think I was in law before this, and I feel like I always said I wish I had taken a B right after, because I think I knew, like, my mother was in education and I didn't want to like jump into that. But then I jumped into it after law school, which I wish I had just kind of realized that in between instead of going straight through. But yeah, I think definitely being in the classroom is the easiest way to figure out if you're adept for being in the classroom, because there's nothing like that experience. Yeah.
And I think you can expand that to like a lot of programs. That's a good example, because I have friends.
No, there's no difference.
You can't simulate a room of kindergartners. You
No,
just
you
can't.
cannot.
You gotta be in a room with them. But the same thing go for healthcare. You know, if you're looking to become a PA, you're looking to become a PT or an OT or a physician, being able to get some real world experience during your undergraduate, it's going to help guide you through. And then again, it goes back to kind of the big catalog of majors. If we find out that we're not as interested in becoming a pharmacist as we thought, but we've realized that maybe the forensic side of things is more interesting to us. Maybe we want to go into the law enforcement field. Maybe we want to go into something more human body based. You can certainly do that. That's where that flexibility becomes so useful for students, whether they come in undecided or not. A lot of people change their major through their college career. So it's good to have a school that can kind of adapt with you as you change, because from 18 to 22 years old, a lot of things change. Your interests, your passions might, your directions might. So it's good to have those doors and those options in one institution.
One question I feel like I'm going to ask on behalf of parents and caretakers is like, you know, let's say Amy's very driven. So Amy kind of knows what she wants to do. I have no doubt that she's going to go do pre-med, go on to med school, whatever. But, you know, maybe there's some students that come in, they think that they know what they want to do, or they come in undecided. How do you guys use advising to ensure that they're not taking these steps to like change majors all the time because there's so many options, but staying on a 4-year track, 5-year at most 6 years is like pushing it? How do you make sure that there is flexibility in, you know, and transferring from, you know, major to major without losing credits or without extending the time at University of Toledo?
Yeah, so that comes in with sort of our network of advising, I'll call it, because you get your traditional academic advisor at the University of Toledo, just like any institution. And that's the person who's usually in your college. Sometimes it's even a professor, and you're in your program. And they're really helping you kind of schedule your classes, signing off on your independent studies, all that great stuff. But at the university, we also have an office for success coaching. And the success coach is someone that helps students a little more holistically. So when students have questions about, you know, how to find a job on campus, or they have questions about how the buses work in the city of Toledo, or how to switch residence halls, they have another person they can go to. These questions could certainly be answered by an academic advisor. They might just already know it, but the success coaches kind of give students that advocate from day one. So someone that's not necessarily lobbying for one major or another, or one program or another. They're there to kind of help independently and see, you know, what do you need to get through this particular semester? What do we need to be building towards our career? We're not enjoying this major. What parts did we like? What didn't we like? What matches up maybe with it differently? And then they work in tandem with those academic advisors. So it is kind of a network. And then, of course, there are the other support services on campus. So the career office to help students find those professional opportunities, the tutoring center on campus as well, the office for multicultural student success, for diversity and inclusion. There's all the different departments and programs that have been started or initiated, or some have been here for a while, that have kind of built that net for students. So that way, when they're going through, when they hit that moment where they're like, this isn't the major I thought it was, this isn't what I thought I wanted to do, they have a lot of people to lean on who can help them, who can guide them. Or if they, you know, they're on a hot streak, they're like, this is what I want to do, and I'm trying to take advantage of every opportunity that this university has for me, they're there to open the doors for them. Specifically in the health sciences, they just created a new office about 2 years ago, the Office of Pre-Health Advising. So students who are pre-med, pre-dentistry, and pre-vets, they now have specific advisors because we saw a need for those students. They have a very specific career track. They have to do a lot of prep. It is, you know, challenging to get into dental school or med school or vet school. So those advisors can help a little more specific or particular way. So it's about a school that can respond to those students' needs long term. But I guess to your initial question, they have a lot of people there for them, and students are going to connect with one person more than another. And that's perfectly normal. You know, that'll happen with their faculty members, any kind of teacher or teaching assistant. But if you have, you know, that really good relationship with at least one of the people in this system, it's going to lead to so much more success, as opposed to if they just had one point of contact, they don't get along super well. Because I had an academic advisor I wasn't best friends with. I would usually go to ask questions to other faculty members in my program, and I loved my alma mater. But it's nice to know my Toledo students have all those options.
I mean, I remember not being 18, 19, and Amy, this is not you at all, not listening to adults around me, you know, because I just remember when I had my advisor, he said, what if you don't want to be a lawyer? Like, I want you to take this class at different career options. I was like, why would I not want to be a lawyer? And here I am, not being a lawyer every day. So now, can we talk a little bit now, Amy, when you were looking, and one of the things that you mentioned earlier was cost. What was your parents' biggest concern about going out of state and in-state versus out-of-state tuition and things like that?
I think for out-of-state colleges, they believed that it would be higher than in-state, and that it would be like unnecessarily high, so that they wouldn't like. They were like, no. They were like, no, out-of-state colleges. So I had to convince them, but I think they just believed that it would be like extremely high compared to going to school like in the state.
Right. And so, Ryan, I'm sure you hear that a lot, or do you hear that? Like, because usually, like, the people who come to the talks at the school are people who've maybe either heard of it or are looking for options, things like that. But how do you convince parents to look at in-state? So, to be clear, for those of you who are in-state, one of the things that's really helpful is that you guys have this, how much does the U of Toledo cost? And you can hit a drop down and it says, I live in Ohio or Monroe. Is it Monroe?
Monroe.
Monroe, okay. County, and we'll commute. I will live on campus. I live outside and I will live on campus. So, and then the total cost per year is $33,624 for people who are out of state, which I would say is very comparable to most of our in-state options. If not, I mean, Amy and I, we've seen some. We've seen some offers this year that are much higher than 33. You're a little shocked to the system as somebody who paid $3,000 a year for tuition back in the day. It's very shocking, but 33 for us is an in-state price. How do you convince parents to even consider out of state, especially with so many options in Virginia?
Yeah, so I guess first that belief that out-of-state options are inherently more, I mean, it's founded in truth that the cost at the beginning is going to be higher, because especially if you look on our website and that drop down you mentioned, if you look at it for what an in-state student it is, you know, you're looking at on campus, you know, roughly $8,000, $9,000 less than what it is for an out-of-state student. So they see that and right away they're like, oh my God, that's so much more. We can't do that. You know, it's going to be better to find that in-state option where you can get the in-state aid, in-state tuition. In-state, I think, is a very positive connotation, and out-of-state is a very negative connotation. So for us specifically at the University of Toledo, the reason that we're kind of expanding to a larger market and getting more students out of state is because we have been able to stay competitive for those out-of-state students. So the cost is about $33,000 a year, your direct cost to the university. But for students with at least a 3.0 GPA, they're going to get something called the Rocket Nation Award. And that's for $8,000 a year, every year for 4 years, as long as you stay in good academic standing with the university.
And
which
good
I'm hoping
academic standing is?
A 3.0.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to be clear.
Yes.
Because it can be.
That's true. People could define it a little differently. 3.0 at the university, and you wouldn't lose it all at once. Just because I know I have some parents who are really nervous about that. We're not looking to take it away from students. We're not, hoping that we can revoke Rocket Nation. We'd like them to keep it because it's usually what makes Toledo accessible. So that's for a 3.0 to about a 3.4. And then once you get to a 3.4, you start to add on our merit awards, which range from about $1,000 to $6,000 additionally. I should take that back. For out-of-state students this year, it starts at $3,500 and goes up to $6,000. So those jumps are a little more grand.
I'm actually going to read it if you don't mind. So 4.0 and above is $14,000. That's the Toledo Excellence and Rocket Nation scholarships. Regents and Rocket Nation for 3.57 and 3.99, $13,000. Trustees and Rocket Nation scholarship 3.4 to 3.74, $11,500. And then the Rocket Nation is $8,000. And then you can also apply for other scholarships and things like that. So why do you guys feel like it's important to be very transparent about, because I hate, let's just be honest. Amy, are we ready to be honest? Like, it's very difficult to figure out how much merit aid people are going to get from colleges, right? And so I can go into the common data set, and Ryan and I kind of know about that, where they put up the information and you can go through and you can look at average financial aid, who's approved, who's not, non-need, things like that. But it's very hard to figure out how much am I going to get from this particular college. And one of the things that really irks me, and Ryan, you know me, I'm on the internet all day fighting. So, but one of the things that really irks me is when I see admissions officers say, and Amy, you've heard this too, students really need to like figure out their budget before they apply. But let me ask you, Amy, when you're applying, you're going to these like presentations, aren't they saying, you say, oh my God, that's really expensive. They say what? Don't worry about it because we have
merit aid
and scholarships, right? So, but then it's so you say, well, how much? And they're like, it really depends on like, it becomes very like, it could be the sky and the wind and your GPA and your leadership. But, but why do you guys think it's
price tag on an education? Can you?
You can, and but you should just apply. And I'm sure you're the kind of student we're looking for. Good students, and what do they always say? Good students and good leaders for tomorrow. But you don't know how much that leadership is going to be valued or devalued. Why do you guys feel like it's important to have transparent discussions about merit aid?
Yeah, I think it goes right back to one of the first things I said, which is about Toledo being an accessible institution. And that being true from an admissions perspective, for us being test optional for a lot of our programs. But I think it's also true, if you're going to be an accessible school, you got to commit to it. So you have to make sure that people know what the cost is going to be. And you have to be able to work with them and help explain kind of the ins and outs. And one of the things I love about our financial aid packages, and we're just now getting them out. We usually are at the end of February, early March. But when we send them out, they're little booklets. And I don't know if I have like last year's next to me. They're little booklets that have like a lexicon in them. So they give you definitions for all the terms. Because if you just give a first-time college-going family a book and says, hey, here's tuition, here's fees, here's room and board, here's your work study, here's your subsidized loan, your unsubsidized loan, your Stafford loan, your Parent Plus loan. Who's that for? You know what I mean?
Amy sent me a picture from work and she said, what did she say, Amy?
Oh, it's like, I don't know what this
is. She sent me a picture of like a piece of paper and it had all these numbers on it. And she's like, what is it? How much is it? And I was like, I'm horrible. Like I am horrific at financial aid. And I think Amy will tell you this. I'm going to be completely transparent. I quoted her like $18,000 more than she was actually going to pay. And I was like, no, Amy, there's no way you got that. And I had celebrated and they were so excited. And then I burst their bubble. And it turns out I was just wrong. And I had just miscalculated. But like when I looked at when I was looking at it,
yeah.
So Amy and I thought, no, they miscalculated, but the parents were actually right in this instance. Mm-hmm. But it is very confusing.
It is.
Like don't tell, here's the thing, and this is just to be clear. Don't tell me what I can take out in loans. Just tell me how much you're planning to cover. I know that I have to cover the rest.
That's so funny. That's honestly, and again, I work for Toledo, so I am of course biased, but I really do think that we have such a nice financial aid packet. And again, this isn't the one from this year, but like this is what we sent out last year, and it's a lot of words and it's hard to read obviously on the screen right now. Right. But it's a lot of context. I mean, it explains a lot of things that are really important and it breaks it all out. And if I can give advice to those families right now that are getting these kinds of booklets right now, it's exactly that, Jen. It's make sure you're separating the loans from the aid, because I know some schools, I'm not here to put anybody on blast, but I know some schools kind of lump They lump them together, and they're like, hey, if you get this federal work study, it's this much less. And it's like,
let me tell you, federal work study is working.
It's just getting a job.
It's a job. Like, we're willing to let you work here.
So things like that, that we at Toledo, I try and avoid that. And we're not, some crazy magic unicorn. There's a lot of schools like us that try to be more transparent. Right. And it is certainly more work because you have to get information out as much as you can to as many people as you can. Right. We have a great financial aid office called Rocket Solution Central. I call them with all my questions still because I'm not a FAFSA expert. They are, but I try and help my family
have no intention as well.
It's God bless them. Honestly, if any of them are listening,
I have
God bless
no clue
the work they do. I really appreciate it. But with any family looking at financial aid this year, if you're a student, this is the first time they've ever done it. So you definitely have questions. But for families, they do it, a maximum of 3 or 4 times if they have 3 or 4 kids that are going to college. So they're not used to it either. It's not just about how much scholarship they're giving you. It's about what's it cost to go there. Because if you get $30,000 in merit award, but the school costs $70,000, that sounds nice getting $30,000, but it's still right. $40,000 you're on the hook for. So you have to kind of go through the whole process to figure out, what do I actually pay the school? I got to get all the numbers. It's hard to do that in September. Like you said, I always tell students, you should apply. This is what the cost is now, and this is how much aid you're going to get as soon as I admit you, and this is how much, or how much merit scholarship in Rocket Nation you're going to get when I admit you. But the FAFSA, we don't review till February, dude. Yeah. So you got to turn it in so we can review it, so we can figure out.
Let me tell you, you got to turn it in.
you got to turn it in. To get one of these books, you got to turn it in.
You have to turn it in. Like, let's emphasize that part. You have to turn in your FAFSA.
Yeah.
Because the later you, sometimes you miss out on grants and aid that you could have gotten if you wait later. So you you actually have to turn in your FAFSA. You have to. And I know some people who are like, why am I not? I haven't even heard back from financial aid. Have you turned in your FAFSA? Oh no.
Yeah.
But I think that's, to me, the other thing is, if you're not sure and you're not clear, it's a good time to reach out to somebody like you, Ryan, and say, how much am I paying? How much am I paying without loans? What is my bottom line cost? But the other thing that I find is, a lot of students will write off a college and say, I can't go to this college. It's way too expensive, before they talk to their admissions officer and say, hey, I really want to come, but I can't afford it. And there's sometimes, and of course, this is not all the time, so I don't want to get everybody's hopes up that it happens every single time. But I see people go on, create GoFundMes and do all this work. And I'm like, have you asked the institution for money first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Start with asking the institution, hey, I really want to come here. And I usually wait till the very end, because there's no point of negotiating financial aid if you plan to go somewhere else. Don't waste people's time. Once you've gotten down to 1 or 2, and if one would be your top choice, if it was maybe saying, hey, if I could get $3,000, I could make this work. But if I can't, then I'm gonna have to go somewhere else. That could be something that could be worked on, or they can say, no, hey, we don't have that money. And that's something I did not know, probably 2 or 3 years ago. I did not know you could actually go ask the institution for more aid. And I know that you guys are big advocates for saying, hey, we can do it, we can help, or hey, sorry, for this particular program or this particular situation, we cannot help.
Yeah, the best thing students can give me is information. If you can come to me and say, hey, here's the situation I'm in, here's how much I'm getting from this school. There's, like you said, there's no guarantee that we can give you additional aid. And that's true for a lot of schools, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Never hurts.
And kind of back to your larger point about seeing it all the way through, right? This school thinking, I'm not going to apply because the school is too expensive, and you don't know if it's too expensive till really you get the financial aid packet. A lot of times schools, at least for most institutions, I feel like an application fee is $50 to $100. That's not nothing. And of course, there are ways to get those fees waived through your school or through the institution sometimes. I have people that just email me asking if they can apply for free. And I say, sure. I'd rather you apply and be able to do it, because that's the money you're putting down to find out what it costs to go there. If you don't apply and you don't get admitted, you're never really going to know what that true cost of that school is. And I think going back to the very beginning thought of this being the out-of-state school being too expensive, these programs all kind of exist around the country in different forms. And I think Toledo is a more generous institution, but we didn't invent this process. We didn't invent, having sort of these sorts of awards and everything.
Right.
Maybe we did. I don't know for sure. I'll pretend that we did.
Right.
We were the first school to be generous.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But for these students who are looking at those out-of-state schools, Toledo, maybe you're looking to go to Tennessee, you're looking to go to California, or Colorado, wherever, go through the whole process and build a relationship with your admissions counselor. It's so much easier for me to advocate for a student that I've been in contact with. Someone who's been emailing me and calling me. The interest is clearly there. They're excited about Toledo. I know they actually want to come here. I'm going to try my best for all my students. But if I know your whole story, if I can really share that with the people on our campus that can affect the change in your financial aid packet, that helps me tremendously. So even it's just little things, just answering emails, asking questions, calling every now and again when you need something, let them know who you are, because when it comes to financial aid season, it can make a little bit of a difference if I really know who I'm speaking with and who I'm working with. And
I try to say, be as transparent as possible. Like, don't say 5,000 when you mean like, oh, I need 5,000, but I really need 3. But if I say 5, maybe they'll give me 3. Just be exact.
Yep.
Because the more, like, I need money is just like, well, yeah, like, I mean, have you seen the gas prices? Like, we all need money, right?
Yeah.
But I need, $3,000 to enroll. And if I got $3,000, I can assure you I would enroll, is a very different conversation, but also be honest about that. Like, I think sometimes students are hesitant to say, it's between you guys and this other institution A, University of Toledo. I want both of you. I'm asking you both to bring down the cost. I don't know. Then be honest about that too. Like, you don't have to say, yes, it's my number one choice. Yes, you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, because ultimately at the end of the day, everybody's job is to find the best fit for their institution and see if there is any wiggle room. So offering 3,000 and then you going somewhere else is not gonna, the 3,000 is still in the pot.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the other thing is if you can tell me some of that stuff, there are also instances where I can give you better financial aid advice, because I've had families say, hey, we experienced a job loss due to the pandemic in the last few months, and so we didn't get as much aid as we thought we would. Can you increase my scholarship? And I can refer them to the financial aid office and say, hey, you should really file a special circumstance, because they'll re-review your FAFSA. And families don't know that, again, because they don't do financial aid every year like we do. So even things like that, where I can say, hey, right now we can't just give you more aid, but I would do this, and then see what happens from there, and then we can, then we can look at it again. So it's, again, being transparent with your admissions counselor, the financial aid office, because we're here to help. And I understand completely when students say, hey, I want to come to Toledo, but it's too expensive. I can go to my community college for less. I can go to this other institution for less. I get it. I mean, it's, especially right now when you're picking a school, it's a big factor. And so the more you can tell me, the more I can try and help you, the better off we're going to be. But just saying straight up, hey, I'm not coming to Toledo, and there was never a conversation, then I certainly can't help you about it.
Right. Okay. It's time for engineering, which, I'm sure my alma mater is going to be like, really, Jen? But, I think a lot of students here, and I mean, Amy, I would say like engineering in Northern Virginia is like up there with like, would you say that, Amy, like pre-med, pre-law? I would say engineering is probably hot. Would you say that? Yeah. Engineering, like everybody who wants to be an engineer. And this is my concern. Now, I have 2 concerns when somebody says that they want to be an engineer. One, I actually have 1 concern, which is, are you actually going to finish the engineering program? Like pre-med, engineering, pre-law. That's why I feel it's my, I feel like I'm like, there's a housewife thing with it. It's like, it's my opinion. It's my opinion. If you're going to do pre-med, pre-law, or engineering, you need to go to a college that has a variety of options. Because you do not know for sure that you are going to graduate pre-med, pre-law, or engineering. And I wish I had not kind of honed in on law, not to discourage you, Amy, but I wish I had not honed in on law so early. I picked it when I was like 16 years old and like just moved forward with it. And I mean, I did everything and I checked every box and I'm still licensed as an attorney here. But I wish I hadn't locked in so quickly and I had explored some other options. Can you talk a little bit about the engineering program at University of Toledo in a way that doesn't get me in trouble?
I would be more than happy.
Actually, I don't care if I get in trouble. But for engineering in Virginia is competitive. Not to say it's not competitive at University of Toledo. What is Toledo offering that a school in Virginia is not offering? Or, okay, let's not even frame it like that. What is Toledo offering?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think engineering is one of those programs you could certainly put on the Toledo marquee. I mean, really, it's a collection of majors and programs with great variety. There's a lot of options for students who are interested in engineering. We carry most all of the classics, so mechanical, civil, electrical, bioengineering, all that great stuff. The engineering technology programs, which you already touched on, which is great. We have some of those as well. But the thing that Toledo kind of has a unique approach on is the way that we do our co-ops, because for our engineering science students, there's a 3 co-op requirement. You have to do 3 full co-ops through the University of Toledo in order to graduate from our engineering program. We help you find all those co-ops. You're placed into a lot of them.
What's a co-op?
Great question.
It's like, it doesn't mean the same at every college, so let's ask, what's a co-op?
A co-op is basically where you go into the field and you're working, you're getting a paycheck, you're logging real hours, you're getting real experience. It's like an internship. Internships oftentimes aren't paid, so they're unpaid internships or you're getting college credit for it. The co-ops through the University of Toledo, a lot of times the semester you're doing your co-op, you're not taking any classes. You're paying about $450 in a co-op fee to the university. Oh. Otherwise, you're working about 40 hours a week and making on average $19 an hour. So they're good paying jobs. It's good experience. You're doing it for the whole semester.
Amy's parents might hear this and be like, Amy.
You can be an engineer in 4.5 years. I mean, medical school takes a little longer. But that 3 co-op requirement, some students do 3 co-ops at the same place, or they'll mix it up. They'll try different co-ops. And like we said, people change their mind. You might start in electrical, go to mechanical. You might start in civil and end up with a communication degree, because that's what my girlfriend did, who is a U Toledo alum. She started in engineering, found out that, hey, really hard math isn't maybe super fun to do all day. And she got a degree in communication.
Let me tell you.
Hey, communication degree guy right here.
Not fun to do all day. I can tell you that.
So that co-op program, super interesting. And then again, it's the breadth of choices as well that kind of is great for students outside of aerospace and there's another big one, architecture, which a lot of people kind of group into engineering sciences. Those 2 we don't have, but most everything else you're going to find through the university. And then another thing that kind of sets us apart is that when you're applying to the University of Toledo's engineering school, there is a test optional path for students. So you can apply to U Toledo's engineering school with or without a standardized test score. If you go without a standardized test score and you're looking at engineering sciences, usually we want to see at least a B in pre-calculus. Because again, we've been joking about it, but a lot of math and engineering. So we kind of got to make sure that we're up to the task to start off in those calculus classes. But if we are looking at engineering technology, then it's more Algebra 2 is usually the minimum requirement. And then if you apply to the University of Toledo, and you can find all our admission requirements on the website. There are no secrets about how to get into Toledo.
It's true. No, it's very transparent.
It's great. And I think it's wonderful for students because I don't want them to sit in limbo for 3 months waiting to get admitted, being nervous about it. They got enough to be nervous about their senior year of high school. I want to kind of, again, make it a little easier on them. But if you get into Toledo, but you don't have, let's say, the math requirement done, or your GPA isn't exactly where it needs to be, you can always start at U Toledo in the University College as either an undeclared student and then take some of those prerequisites to start engineering, or there are specific pathways, something called the Gear Set program, which helps students navigate their way into the engineering science program. So there's a lot of pathways to become an engineer through U Toledo.
So it's not exclusionary, because I know here in Virginia, you will not, I promise you, if you do not start in engineering in most Virginia colleges, you are not going to be able to switch into engineering. Because a lot of our colleges, because they're so competitive there, But let's go ahead and hit the trifecta. So we have engineering, pre-med. What do we need to know about the pre-med program? Amy, I'm sure you have some pre-med, questions, but pre-med, what do we need to know about the pre-med program at University of Toledo?
Yeah, pre-med for U Toledo is a track you would put on top of a major. So you can major in anything at the university and be a pre-med student. So you can, do the classic biology. You could go into exercise science. My sister-in-law, shout out Eiley, she is a dermatologist and she got her undergraduate degree in religious studies. So you really can major in a lot of different stuff and have that pre-med track. The pre-med track just makes sure that we are kind of doing the preparation we need for that medical school application. We're taking our prerequisite courses. Some majors have those built in. So that's why biology is a pretty popular choice because you do them anyway. Whereas if you were to do, psychology, you need to now build in some of those anatomy and physiology and physics classes and everything. But for specifically U Toledo, I mentioned it earlier, we have that office of pre-health advising. So anyone who comes in for pre-med, they get kind of that specialty advising aspect to it added on. They do some really unique programming. Dr. Deborah Hendricks is the director of the program. My good friend, Ms. Chevron Kelly, also works in their office with our Back to MD students. That is a pathway program for pre-med students. So it's only for seniors in high school. You can apply to the program until this year is February 1st, but next year it could change. I assume it'll stay around February, but you apply as a high school senior. And if you're admitted, you are guaranteed an interview at the U Toledo Med School your junior year of college. So you do it a year earlier than you normally would, and you're going to do it. As long as you stay, again, in good academic standing with the med school, which is about a 3.5 for them. And again, you'd shoot for that anyway if you're going to med school. And you're active in that pre-health advising office and their programming. You're going to get that interview. If you get your seat, then you would just finish your senior year like normal and then go right to med school at the U Toledo Medical College. If you don't get your seat, which I know isn't fun to think about, but this is still a benefit, you've already done one round of interviews. So now we kind of know what we need to work on. We know where our deficits are. We know to start preparing applications, not just for U Toledo, but maybe other med schools that we're considering. A lot of times or traditionally, if you don't get into med school after that senior year, you got to kind of figure out real quick what you're going to do. Am I going to go to grad school, get a master's degree? Am I going to try working for a little bit? Am I going to continue my undergraduate education? This gives those students another year of work to bolster their resume for that application. This program has a lot of fun little things to it, other little benefits. So check it out on the website, Back to MD. I want to make it very clear. It does not guarantee you a seat in the med school. It guarantees an interview, because that's the most common question I get. But it is still a great opportunity for those students who want to do med school.
I mean, I think being told, it's terrifying, right? To be told, like, here are some deficits that we're seeing, which is why we can't admit you. But it also gives you an opportunity to say, okay, I think it's moment of truth, right? Because at that point, you either decide, I'm going to make up these deficits and I'm going to continue to commit on, or, you know what? Like, I just want to, I don't know what. I heard 3.5 and I was like, if Amy ever came back with a 3.5, her parents would kill her. A 3.5 to them is like a D. Her parents are like 3.5. So she would be like, it would come in with like a 4 something. And then, of course, hitting that Northern Virginia trifecta, the final one, my favorite, pre-law. And can you talk to us about the 3+3? And then I know you had a proposal that you were going to talk about with out of state to in-state and things like that. But let's start with the pre-law and the 3+3.
Yes. So there is also not only a med school and a hospital for U Toledo, but we also do have our own law school. And so for our undergraduate students, there is what they call 3+3 program. And what that means is you would start as a freshman at U Toledo like normal, and you would be pre-law. Usually those students are going to be in the College of Arts and Letters. For this 3+3 program, you would do 3 years of undergraduate. And then your 4th year, you'd be wrapping up your undergraduate and starting your law classes. And then you'd have 2 more years after that of law school. And then you finish with your JD in 6 years instead of the traditional 7, where you do 4 years of undergraduate and 3 years of law school. So there is an application there in the middle to law school. Obviously, they still take the LSATs and everything. But having I don't want to bring up bad memories.
I would rather take the bar again than take the LSAT again. I've always said that. It's not rational because the LSAT was easier, but I would rather take the bar again.
And my law students, they come into it and they're like, how bad could it be? I just did the ACT, and I know. I tell them, I'm not here to ruin dreams. You know, I just tell them, I'm like, you're going to crush it.
You're there for that. It will ruin your.
Exactly.
There's okay. So anyway, let's move on from my trauma.
But it's a great program, 3+3 if you're interested. But again, you don't have to. Some students do still stick to the traditional 4 years because they don't want to go to Toledo's law school. They are from Virginia and they're like, well, I'll go to Toledo for pre-law, and then I have an interest in coming back to Virginia for law school, or I want to go somewhere else, which perfectly reasonable. So, it's still an excellent preparation.
I'm like, perfectly reasonable. I mean, you're saving like a lot of money. I don't know if you guys have heard about law school day. For me, I think I've always found the appeal of if you're going straight through, which I think that's the first determination you have to make is like, am I going to go straight through? If you're going to go straight through, saving a year.
That's a lot of money. I mean, it is.
And also a lot of trauma in law school. So if you can spare yourself a year, I think the third year of law school, I will say, as somebody who went to law school, the third year of law school is very fluffy. Like you're just looking for a job anyway. You're not really, some of us, not me, of course, Amy, not me, did not go to class our third year of law school. Some of us, others of us were committed. So I think having a program that allows you to graduate a year early and gets you into the market as quickly as possible so you can start paying down those loans is exciting if you're going straight through.
Oh yeah. And I can't cover all of them here because we would be here all night, but there are so many of those little 4+1 programs for you, Toledo, where you can get your undergraduate, start some graduate work that senior year, and then finish with a master's. You can do it with MBAs, you can do it with Masters of Public Health. There are all these great bridges into programs. Now, law school is awesome because it is certainly more unique to us. Other schools have some of these little bridges, but there's a ton of them at U Toledo. So if you are looking at your undergraduate degree, obviously you're still in high school and you are only thinking about undergraduate, but something to know, there's an option down the road to make it easy to get that, graduate level degree if you're interested later.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you have like a little bit of an announcement of a proposal. To be clear, it's a proposal, people. It's not finalized, but again, the one topic that we meant to cover, and I hope we covered very well, is what do you do if you're trying to convince maybe your caretaker, your guardian, your parent to go out of state, or how do we reduce the hesitation about going out of state? Can you talk a little bit about the proposal that is coming down the pipe with
Yes.
Pipes?
The pipe coming down the pipe. Yeah, absolutely. So for right now, there is a proposal for the University of Toledo that we would do away with the out-of-state surcharge entirely for students that have a 3.5 GPA or higher. So if you had a 3.5 or higher, you would just be considered an in-state student with in-state aid or in-state tuition, fees, room and board and everything. And then you would still qualify for merit scholarship. So that is that award that ranges from $3,500 to $6,000. Now, if you're getting this in-state thing, you already are going to qualify for at least $3,500 in additional scholarships. So now tuition, you'd be looking at U Toledo at about $7,000 a year in tuition, and then of course you have room and board.
Amy, don't let your parents watch this because they'll be like, it's time. They'll be like, we found it.
We are optimistic in my office that this is something that should be happening in the near future. You'll know it's official when you hear that there's a guy in Bethesda standing on the roof of his apartment screaming wildly. I'll be so excited when it happens. I mean, it's going to benefit a lot of out-of-state students, not just in Virginia, but in Maryland and DC and other states as well.
I mean, and then one of the things that I wanted to emphasize, because, I actually met University of Toledo through an article that Eric Hoover did in the Chronicle a couple of years ago with one of my students talking about, she was concerned about test optional and applying because it wasn't clear yet. Because you guys, it was the middle of the pandemic. So this was when, to be clear for everyone, this is when you were determining whether to wipe down your groceries pandemic. So it's very early stages of the pandemic. Remember that stage where you were like, I personally was wiping down all my groceries as they came in, but
I've repressed a lot of those memories. I realized like 2020 to 2021 is just a big fog of.
Yeah. But I know that you guys have shifted a lot of policies and actually kind of gone like all the way to the other side of the spectrum. Can you talk? I know we've talked about this earlier, but can you talk to people about test optional for scholarships, for merit aid? Do you have to have a test score for scholarships or merit aid at University of Toledo?
You do not need a test score for any of these merit awards we're talking about. For most all the scholarships, they are test optional as well. Really, the choice comes down to when students are applying. And again, on the website, you can find a full list of all the majors and what the requirements are with or without test scores. And there's situations where students are better served by one or the other. And there's some situations where it doesn't matter. So if I have a student with, a 3.9 GPA and I almost said 1900 SAT, but that's not true.
A 1210. A 1210 would be disproportionate. Yeah. Don't worry, I got it. Yeah.
Jen got my back.
Yeah, a 1415 would be proportionate, and a 1210 would be disproportionate.
So if you have scores like that, it's not a huge deal if you apply with or without your test scores. But if you're someone who has a really good GPA, but the SAT just wasn't kind to you, then let's go test optional. Or if you maybe during those pandemic years, your GPA really suffered because it was hard to exist for a long time, but you got some good test scores, that might balance us out. So having those options for students is great because it gives them a little more flexibility. And again, there's pathways into a lot of these majors, the specialized programs like the Back to MD. There's a pathway program for dental school that we partner with Case Western Reserve University on. Some of these, it's only seniors in high school and that's it. But major wise, like studying biology, chemistry, education, engineering, business, you can get into these programs once you start at the university. Because again, we want to have a high caliber educational opportunity for people, but we want to make sure people can actually do it. They can access the thing you build here. And that's something that drives me crazy is some of these schools, they have these incredibly, I want to use very polite language here, very highfalutin program.
I wouldn't. Welcome to Jen the Tutor.
They build these schools that sound so great and so grand, but then they're like, but only 1% of the people get to go here and do it. And it's like, well, then why would you build it like that? We try and build
working by design.
We can go for another hour if we want to talk about the exclusionary policies in higher education. Which, boy, that'd be fun. What are you guys doing for the next hour? Yeah. you want to unpack that?
We'll have to have a panel on that. But yeah, I think that's the thing is like sometimes people, especially in Northern Virginia, where we have like a big focus on like things that we know, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't take risks, but like I haven't found that people who go to like non-name brand schools are unhappy. Like I find that the students who were willing to expand their options and look for the program as opposed to look for this particular name or this level of exclusivity. One of the things that I will say, and I know you kind of talked about this, we talked about this last week with University of Richmond as well, is one of the advantages of being at a program that is equitable and accessible is that they try to make opportunities for career equitable and accessible. So you're not always competing or fighting for, internships or jobs or co-ops in your cases. Mm-hmm. There's somebody there helping you get that, as opposed to at some of these, highly rejective, as Akil would call it, schools, you do see this fight for every opportunity. And I do see a lot of those students from really selective colleges, their first year just chilling at home, working at Dairy Queen, which shout out to Dairy Queen. I love getting free ice cream.
Oh yeah. But, outstanding.
But free ice cream is amazing. But I think looking into not just the program, but like how easy is it for you to get a job while you are working, while you're going through school, that is a huge difference between an equitable and accessible university and a non-equitable and non-accessible university. Everything does not have to be a fight. Everything should not have to be a competition. Opportunities should be granted to you. Don't let me get off my soapbox, but
No,
opportunity should be granted to you,
yes.
and the college should be working. I know this is crazy. Sorry, let me correct my ableism there. I know this is wild, but what if you didn't have to compete and the university that you're paying is actually working for you to help you find opportunities to bolster your resume? I mean, to me, that sounds great.
Your larger question too about, kind of when students talking to their parents and their caregivers and their advocates about, going away for school, like you just said, just because you haven't heard of the school before does not mean the value of education is any lower than something that you're familiar with and that you know. And so for those students that are kind of looking outside their state lines or wherever it might be outside of their corridor of the country, it's really important that they do this research, they take the visits and everything. But kids find Toledo in the craziest ways. I mean, sometimes it's the obvious, they met me at a college fair, they got a mailer, we bought their name from SAT or ACT or whatever. But sometimes it's just
natural reaction. Sorry.
But sometimes it's just, they like midweek football and they see Toledo sometimes, or they saw our stickers on something, or they see an athlete's name, or
they see a cup in my office.
They see a cup in your office. So there's all these fun ways they can find us. And then that curiosity leads them hopefully to do a little research and figure out, oh, wait a minute, this school I've never heard of before in a state that I've never thought about before. Maybe it's not so bad. And then they look and they're like, oh, it seems so great. There's so many good opportunities. Hey, they have really good financial aid too. Why didn't I know about this? And it's because it's so easy for us to get stuck in these little bubbles of the schools that, your upperclassmen of a high school go to, everyone's heard of them, they know them, and it kind of feeds into a longer line of students doing kind of the same thing. But there are so many great schools out there to explore. And it's however you find them, it's important that you just do that little extra digging and see, well, wait a minute, what if I did live in Ohio? What if I did live in Illinois or Texas, whatever it might be?
Yeah. I mean, I know Amy's been looking outside of her sandbox. Is it sandbox? But yeah. Well, Ryan, we could talk all day. Anything else you want to tell students or parents or caregivers or guardians or, anybody who's out there?
You're doing a great job. I have so many parents that call me. Everyone listening is doing a great. I have so many parents that call me right now flustered. They're like, we just feel so far behind. We don't know what we're doing. And I tell them, like, it's totally fine. Like,
I'm sorry. I know Amy has a bunch of homework tonight, but we gotta address that, because the one thing I hear from Northern Virginia parents more than anything else is they'll be like, hey, my daughter's 10th grade. I know we're behind. And I'm like, what? Like, I know we're behind already. And I know we should have gotten started a lot earlier. And I'm like, I just want to make it perfectly clear on the record. I have gotten students into every type of college in this country. And I've put together applications from like August to last May. Like, I had a student last May that was like, could I go to college? And I was like, I don't know, let's find out. Yeah. But there are colleges for everyone, and you're not behind. I think one of the things that happens is in higher education, Ryan, we could talk about this all day, is that we have this top-down philosophy where it's like the schools at the top take up a lot of space and dictate the narrative, where it's like it's so competitive to get into college and it's so hard and you have to start so early, you have to plan everything. And that's not true. There are schools like University of Toledo who are just looking for students who are 17, who have not necessarily changed the world, but who want to be educated. Not like that you guys don't have world changes, you do, but who want to be educated and who find a college that values the student as they are, rather than manipulating your student into becoming something else. I know Amy's very stubborn. So you couldn't tell Amy to like, oh, you have to do this program for college, or you have to do this, da, 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 da. And that's one of the traits that I love about her. But there is a lot of pressure to do certain things and be a certain way for colleges. And you could just not.
I mean, it's so that idea that sort of that again, we'll put it in quotes, top down, where like the big schools, they have really early deadlines, they have really strict requirements. That really is people's perception of higher education in a lot of cases, where they think, especially for like first gen students where a lot of people in the family don't have a lot of prior knowledge of college or higher education. It's so easy for them to be, base their knowledge on movies and television shows and the news. Jen, I think you'll appreciate this. I had people asking me after the USC scandal where, admissions people were being bribed like $250,000. They were like, has anyone ever offered you money? And I was like, $250,000? No.
I would talking
about $250,000? No. They would just have to call me and talk to me, and I'd be like, well, what's your kid's grades? What's their deal? How can we help them? Right?
And to be clear, because we have USC coming on, that's a very, very odd, even they were shocked by that, to be clear.
Crazy.
They were like, wait, what?
That's all.
And that was not the admissions, that was the coaches. So, yeah.
And so they have that. They have that movie with Tina Fey that I never saw about college admissions too. And so, and again, we all do this. We base our world knowledge on like social media and mass media and everything. And so until they really get into meet schools that are beyond just, the name brand or the things that have been kind of mythologized, passed down, they really don't know that, it's a little more flexible. It's a little more
meet you where you are.
Yeah, a little more human, I think, a little more acceptable of students, because not everyone has a 4.0 and was the son of the president. Some students just want an education and they want to be able to better their lives.
Not everybody's Amy. We don't have.
Not everyone's Amy. I wasn't Amy, that's for sure.
But I think even Amy is very reasonable about like, I just want to find a college that has my program, not necessarily a college. Don't get into, I always tell students, you're going to be there for 4 years. Your parents are not going to be there for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And if the people that are unhappy, the people who actually like call me, because there's very rarely that a student who has decided on a college calls me and says, I want to transfer. Every student that's ever called me and said, I need to transfer out, they did not make the decision based on what they wanted, but what everybody around them wanted. And either they're unhappy and they're making it work, or they just cannot take it anymore and they just have to leave. And so I would say get out of your comfort zone, look at colleges, and also please, I think this is one of the key traits of University of Toledo. Find a college. If you're going to be specialized, in that's fine, but find a college that has opportunities for you to do interdisciplinary or explore outside or switch majors easily, because paying for that fifth year mentality too. Once you get into that fifth year, it's hard not to go 6, 7, 8, and 9. Mm-hmm. But find a college that has opportunities, but also a college that's willing to not hoard those opportunities or limit those opportunities or make you fight for those opportunities. Find a college that's willing to fight for you. Absolutely. Ryan, we could talk to you all day. We appreciate having you on.
Of course.
Oh, by the way, what's your favorite thing to eat at Wegmans?
Oh my gosh. I had this sounds weird, but I had some delicious salads, like those little like pre-made ones. They're really, really good. And like when I'm on the road for work, I try and eat a little better because you're in the car a lot and you're sitting down and not moving as much as you'd like. But that was really good. But they also saw they had some delicious rotisserie chicken. I haven't had that yet.
Yeah,
but that like
really
big
good.
Rotisserie. I love good chicken.
Amy, what's your favorite thing at Wegmans?
I don't really eat a lot of things from Wegmans.
Wait, I'm sorry, what? Did you say you don't go to Wegmans?
I mean, I go, but I don't.
Okay, so I failed her. I'll take her to Wegmans. I was actually at
the rotisserie. I've had the rotisserie chicken. It's actually
the rotisserie chicken's very good.
It looks great. Jen, what's yours?
I like their dumplings, although they're like a little softer than I would like. Mm-hmm. I like their wings. I like their pizza. I got a cupcake for myself. I like everything at Wegmans, but I know this is not a Wegmans commercial, but the one thing I like is that they have really good branded food. Mm-hmm. So like their own brand, and they have this black bean dip that is so, it's like tangy and sweet. And the one thing I used to like when I was a vegan, I'm not a vegan anymore, anybody, but the one thing I liked as a vegan is that they would put on every of their brand foods, you can actually see vegan, not vegan. So it's very easy to identify which foods are vegan and not vegan and things like that. But that black bean dip, let me tell you something.
That sounds good.
I would, It's just delicious. Everybody should try it. But okay, Ryan, I'm going to end the live broadcast. Everybody, Ryan, how can people reach you if they have questions?
Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, you get all my contact information on the website. My name is down there, Ryan Chernick. My email address, just my full name, ryan.chernick@utoledo.edu. You can give me a call. I am happy to text as well if you're more comfortable texting. If you want to reach out and you want to schedule a visit, you can do all that stuff through the website as well. But hopefully in the last hour and 10 minutes, you found that I seem like a nice guy. So please
reach out.
Feel comfortable.
Don't go to any college without connecting with somebody.
Yeah, no, please give me a call and I am happy to answer your questions about Toledo and any of those programs or majors.
Okay. All right. I'm going to end the broadcast. Thanks, guys.